Tim's news explosion. 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 Tim's news explosion.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tim's News Explosion this week, coming to you a day later on this Tuesday, the 24th of June, 2025, and also 5 minutes later, a day and 5 minutes later. We are live on the Wilmsfront YouTube channel, the Wilmsfront Rumble channel, and on my Wilmsfront X account. Hello to everyone in the chat. Hello, Dawn. Great to see you. It is 8:35 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria. And as we go to air tonight, the ceasefire that President Trump posted on his Truth Social this morning, Australian time, appears to be off after Israel has accused Iran of violating it with... Now, let's go to what Trump announced this morning unilaterally before Iran and Israel had said that they agreed to it. So, congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire. And upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful. On the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will, I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't. And never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. And now it's quite confusing from this statement. So is the ceasefire beginning 6 hours from now? Is that when there can't be any more missiles flown? I mean, I'm not a military expert. I don't know how long these missiles fired from Iran or Israel take to meet each other. So it says that the total ceasefire will start approximately 6 hours, and for 12 hours at point, the war will be considered officially ended. So it should have ended, say, about an hour or so ago. But we don't know. Iran denies that it has violated the ceasefire. So Israel denies that it has violated the ceasefire. Now, there was, after the ceasefire was announced, there was an Iranian missile. It seems that a lot have been getting through the Iron Dome. And because there have been 29 fatalities so far on the Israeli side, I'm not sure if that includes the 4 killed today, even though they were in a bomb shelter in an apartment. And Iran says that 430 of their citizens have been killed. So there was the afternoon missile, which killed those 4 Israelis, which is absolutely horrific. But then it was about 6 o'clock tonight, Australian Eastern Standard Time, when there were sirens going on in Israel, and which means incoming missiles. Iran has denied that it sent the missiles. They given that Israel eliminated so many of their military generals. It's it's hard to know who's actually in charge in Iran. I mean, they're not as secretive as North Korea, but certainly the flow of information from Iran is, it seems that there's a lot of confusion in there who's actually in charge. Obviously, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the ultimate leader is the supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, and then there is so the president's beneath him. So the supreme leader, he's the ultimate authority. So, and of course, the supreme leader can, even though Iran does have elections, the Ayatollah, the Revolutionary Guard, they can make it so that certain candidates can't get on their ballots. So we are waiting. This is a breaking news show. We are waiting to hear from President Trump as he's going to make his way to NATO in The Hague and the Netherlands. We might get some plane or chopper talk. Now, when Trump announced this unilaterally, Iran said, if Israel stops shooting at us, then we have no intention of continuing the military operations, because it was Israel that started this, what Trump calls the 12-day war, on June the 13th. So it was started by Israel. They, of course, claimed that Iran was weeks, days, hours. Can't remember how long away it was from a nuclear bomb. And at the time, Trump and his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said that that was unilateral action by Israel, though the United States was told in advance that they get their embassy staff out. But then Trump said that Iran should get back to the negotiating table, unconditional surrender. And then Trump made it seem like he was going to bomb Iran imminently. And then he put a 2-week deadline on it. And then, of course, it was called the Operation Midnight Hammer, which occurred on Sunday morning Australian time, so on Saturday, on the alleged Iranian nuclear sites in Fordow, Nanitz, and Ifsan. So, according to Trump, this was a very successful operation. So this is what he said. We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordow, Nanitz, and Ifsan. All planes are now outside of Iranian airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordow. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is no other military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for attention to this matter. And so Iran, in response, decided that they would bomb a US base in Qatar, which was one of the countries, well, the primary mediator countries. They've also been negotiating the ceasefires between Israel and Hamas. Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response. Which we expected and have been very effectively countered. There have been 14 missiles fired, 13 were knocked down, and 1 was set free because it was headed for a non-threatening direction. I am pleased to report that no Americans were harmed and hardly any damage was done. Most importantly, they've all got it out of their system and there hopefully will be no further hate. I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice, which made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody to be injured. Perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I'll enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. Thank you for this attention to this matter. Now, it was interesting that now there's two warmongers classes, I call them, in the United States primarily, but also around the Western world. So there is the open neocons who never saw a war that they didn't like. So that is Lindsey Graham in the Republican Senator of South Carolina, and Mark Levin, the radio host and Fox News host. So they have been neocons forever. And obviously when the neocons were running the US under the Bush administration, they were, of course, the big cheerleaders for the Iraq War, which was based on both a fabricated and faulty intelligence. Now, the US intelligence, I played to you Tulsi Gabbard last week, who said that Iran is not pursuing a nuclear weapons program, but it could. So this is the thing, that obviously Australia could develop a nuclear bomb, but it's not going to. So this could factor. And so Trump last week in some chopper plane talk basically said his own intelligence agencies were wrong, and that he basically was believing what the Israeli intelligence Benjamin Netanyahu was saying.
20 years ago, you were skeptical of a Republican administration that attacked a Middle East country on the idea of questionable intelligence of weapons of mass destruction. How is this moment different with Iran?
Well, there were no weapons of mass destruction. I never thought there were. And that was somewhat pre-nuclear. You know, there was a nuclear age, but nothing like it is today. And it looked like I'm right about the material that they've gathered already. It's a tremendous amount of material. And I think within a matter of weeks, or certainly within a matter of months, they're going to be able to have a nuclear weapon. We can't let that happen. I was very much opposed to Iraq. I said it loud and clear, but I was a civilian, but I guess I got a lot of publicity. But I was very much opposed to the Iraq war. And I actually did say, don't go in, don't go in, don't go in. But I said, if you're going to go in, keep the oil. But they didn't do that.
What intelligence do you have that Iran is building a nuclear weapon? Your intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
Mr. President, Chinese in any way helping Iran at this moment? Clearing reports of serious planes landing in Iran from China?
They say that they're there to take.
Now, I've heard this repeated by neocons and the neocons in MAGA clothing, that this is different. The Iran WMDs having a nuclear bomb in 2025 than what was claimed about Iraq in 2003. So they always like to claim that, oh, this is not the same movie. It's brand new, as that meme goes. And they also said, oh, this is not about putting boots on the ground like Iraq. It's about strategic missile bunker buster bombs to take out Iran's nuclear facilities, to put back their nuclear weapons program for years and years and years. And so that they argued that, see, it was completely different from Iraq or Afghanistan, except then we had Donald Trump start to post, it's not politically correct to use the term regime change. Sorry, I've dropped out of the Trump voice. But if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, Why wouldn't there be regime change? Mega. And then, of course, you had the Lindsey Graham and Mark Levins of the world. Basically, yes, let's escalate it and have have a regime change. Basically, showing, well, well, of course, that's what they always wanted, but they wanted to egg Trump on. Now, of course, Trump was elected on a platform of starting no new wars in the Middle East or around the world, no more forever wars. So this seemed when he said advocated for regime change, that seemed to be a complete betrayal of his promises. Now, we had last week, did anyone in the chat, I watched the full 2 hours of the Tucker Carlson interview with Ted Cruz, who claims that he's not neither a neocon or an isolationist. He's for American interests. So I'm surprised that Ted Cruz agreed to the interview, given that Tucker does his likes to interrupt with his mocking. And you wonder if Ted Cruz got really frustrated and angry deep down. I'd love to know what would happen when the cameras were switched off. But obviously, Ted Cruz thought that it was a good idea to speak to Tucker. And of course, there were some tense moments, including where Cruz said that Tucker was obsessed with Israel, and obviously there is a number of people who are new activists or new media who are neocons and accuse those who are America first and that the United States shouldn't fund and fight wars for Israel of anti-Semitism. And did anyone see this Babylon Bee article, which was pretty blunt? I don't know if America should be involved in another Middle Eastern war, says raging anti-Semite, which this has been developing a tactic for, well, obviously this tactic has accelerated since Hamas's October 7 attack in southern Israel. So the headline says, the local man expressed mild concern about the US getting involved in another Middle Eastern war, forever exposing itself as a vile, raging anti-Semite. No, I'm not an anti-Semite, the man said. I love Jews. I have Jewish friends. The Jew-hating bigot desperately insisted, clearly trying to hide his gross anti-Semitism. I just don't want to watch another foreign war. That's it. At the time of publishing, the man had also expressed concern over America's spending in the Russia-Ukraine war, forever outing himself as a puppet of Vladimir Putin. While Tucker Carlson is accused of being a Putin puppet as well. And there's also that accusation that when he interviewed the Prime Minister of Qatar, that he was paid for it. Which he denies. The nickname for him is Qatari Carlson. And of course, there's already the nickname for Candace Owens that, well, Rabbi Shmuley, he didn't call her Clandis Ovens, but said that people were calling her Clandis Ovens, which is a clever tactic by people to make a nickname spread without claiming that you're the one who's spreading the nickname. That said, people are calling her this. I'm not calling her Clandis Ovens. And now, of course, the Candace Owens ex-Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, of course, is for the as much military intervention, US and Israeli, in Iran as possible, as he would want the regime gone. Now, Ted Cruz talked about that he wanted regime change in Iran. Now, it's only Islamists and morons in the West who are waving Iranian flags. Now, Ted Cruz he clarified that he wanted the Republic of Iran. It's a theocracy, Iran, even though it does have religious and ethnic minorities. He wanted to see the regime change, which is obviously up to the people of Iran, because it was a US intervention beginning with the 1952 coup against the democratically elected Prime Minister of Iran in response to oil nationalization policies. Then the US backed the Shah, being the absolute monarch, and then, of course, led to the Islamic Revolution in 1979, and the Shah had to flee. So, US intervention in Iran over the past 70 plus years has just made the government of Iran. I mean, they got rid of a prime minister. All they wanted to do was nationalize the oil, and 27 years later, they got an Islamic theocracy. Now, Tucker Carlson, he was accused of gotcha questions against Ted Cruz about not knowing the population of Iran, which is 90 million, and not knowing the demographic makeup. He got right that they are primarily Persian. The biggest ethnic minority there is Azerbaijanis. It borders Azerbaijan. And it's also important to remember that Iran, its theocracy is Shiite Muslim, and it has been in a proxy conflict with Saudi Arabia, which is Sunni, and has also in the past funded radical Wahhabist Islam throughout the Western world. Remember that the majority of the 9/11 hijackers were Saudi, and obviously Saudi Arabia is under Sharia law as well, but it's an ally of the United States because basically it is able to sell the oil easily to the United States. And this is obviously, Iran is in the top 4 oil producing nations. And obviously the big consequence for us, well, not just here in Australia, but around the world, if we thought that we were getting peace through bombs this morning, but now it doesn't look so. So Trump tells Israel, do not drop those bombs after threat to target Iran. So that's a pretty strong statement by Trump, as he warns it would be a major violation of the ceasefire. So that's pretty strong words from Trump, not against Iran, but Israel. And he says that Israel would be violating the ceasefire. Dawn Browning says, who were the dancers, talking about 9/11? Yeah, they were Israeli intelligence filming the World Trade Centers come down. And there is substantial evidence that Israel knew about 9/11 in advance, but didn't tell their greatest ally, the United States. Though, of course, there were many New York Jews who didn't show up for work in the Twin Towers that day, including the owner of the World Trade Center, Lucky Larry Silverstein, who's still alive in his 90s, had a dermatology appointment, really the luckiest man alive. So Trump, he's really it's based on his initial comments, really wants to go back to being the peacemaking, deal-making president. And obviously there was massive backlash to his threats and then actual missile attacks on Iran from many MAGA personalities and politicians as well. The most prominent being Marjorie Taylor Greene, and also I mentioned Tucker Carlson, the Hodge twins. They are anti-war with Iran, and I mentioned the what I call the neocons in MAGA clothing. I mentioned people like the Babylon Bee, Billboard Chris, and going back to Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin. They, of course, were never Trumpers in 2016, but of course have jumped on the bandwagon because Trump has a history of listening to the last person who he spoke to. And now I don't call Thomas Massie a Republican congressman from Kentucky, or Rand Paul, a Republican senator from Kentucky, MAGA, because they are libertarians, principled libertarians, as is Dave Smith, who Ben Shapiro has attacked by name. So Dave Smith he's a comedian, he's Jewish, but because he is anti-wars for Israel, has accused them of genocide in Gaza, he is now a big threat. And you remember that he was with Joe Rogan when he interviewed Douglas Murray, who said that you're interviewing people who are not experts. Even though he's appeared on the Trigonometry podcast repeatedly with another Jewish comedian who is pro-Iranian intervention, Konstantin Kisin. It seems that these neocon Jews, they're very threatened by another Jew, Dave Smith, having such a prominent platform now. And he is more of a comedian than Konstantin Kisin. Dave Smith is constantly going on tour. There was a debate between Konstantin Kisin and Dave Smith on Piers Morgan Uncensored. I haven't watched it because Piers Morgan Uncensored is just a shouting match. But is anyone aware of any of that Konstantin Kisin has done any stand-up lately? He just seems to do his Trigonometry podcast, his vlogs, and his blogs, and speak at various conferences, while Dave Smith is always on the road. And now, going on to, as I mentioned, that the fact that the reason why just drawing back here, the reason why I am anti-war and why people like Rand Paul, Thomas Massie, and Dave Smith are anti-war, because innocent civilians die, and there have been civilians in Iran who have been killed and civilians in Israel who have been killed as well. Obviously, there are more Iranians who have been killed. It's a country of 90 million people, and it's one of the most mountainous countries on Earth, which would make doing a Iraq type ground operation it would lead to the deaths of so many American soldiers. I mean, it's twice. The population of Iran is the population of Afghanistan and Iraq combined. So many Americans would die if there was a full-scale war. And obviously, the US troops, they don't have a choice about where they're deployed. And war, it's just full of senseless deaths. And now Israel's, like I said, Israel started this conflict with Iran. Now, obviously, I mentioned last week that the Iranian missiles, they're the ones that killed the Israelis. But of course, if you beat with a bat and a lion, and the lion attacks you, of course, it's the lion is the one that mauls you. But of course, you whacked the lion. Of course, that's what Hamas did to Israel on October 7, but then said, oh, we demand a ceasefire, even though we murdered 1,200 Israelis and took over 200 hostages. But as we have seen with Israel's operations in Gaza, there have been so many civilian deaths, the bombing of 36 hospitals, and but Israel had the nerve to say that when Iran bombed one of their hospitals, so that was the Skora Medical Center. So this is not the New York Times. Netanyahu's fury. They bombed a hospital. That's our thing. They're copying us. And I heard the neocon shills on Sky News Australia say, oh, where's the condemnation and protests of Iran bombing an Israeli hospital? Of course, they're all bad. The bombing of hospitals is absolutely horrific, and no side should do it. And of course, in this hyper, like we see the extremists on the Israeli side who Israel can do whatever it wants, and then there are extremists on the other side, the Free Palestine. They never condemn Hamas. And so we're going back to the neocon shields on Sky News Australia. So they have been non-stop bagging the Albanese government and Foreign Minister Penny Wong for their embarrassing, inept response to unilateral Israeli and US strikes on Iran. Of course, what Australia's role should be in this is nothing. It should be Australia First, which was actually the platform that Albanese was elected on May the 3. If you watch Sky News After Dark, Zionism After Dark, you you would think that the election didn't happen. And I saw that I actually agreed with Kos Samaras, the Labor pollster who runs Redbridge, that Australian voters rejected the extremists on both sides on May the 3rd, which is exactly right. But of course, Sky News, it's obviously Sky News After Dark, it's ideologues, and of course they just care about also the ratings and throwing red meat to their audience. Now they had their she used to be the media writer for the Australian. Before that, she was News Corp's finance editor. Now she's News Corp's Europe correspondent, Sophie Ellsworth. Now she's in Tel Aviv. Now I couldn't believe that she was in Tel Aviv across the motorway with a press jacket on. I don't know that press flap jackets make it so you don't get hit by Iranian missiles. They see a press jacket and like, oh, we better not hit that press journalist. So she had a cool story about some Israeli she met in Tel Aviv who had a visceral reaction when she said she was Australian.
There was one man at the cafe. I said I was an Australian reporter, and he was livid. He said, your government have done nothing for us, and he told me to leave. It got very hostile. So things can turn here on the ground. As a reporter, people can welcome you in as a journalist, and others have reacted extremely badly once they know you're from Australia, and that's just a sense of what is happening from my own experience.
Like, we have to step back to Israelis and the Israeli government. Do they really think about Australia as much as these Sky News reporters think Israel think about Australia? Don't forget that there have been other countries, such as Emmanuel Macron in France, who have been constantly critical of Israel's actions in Gaza, which have continued. There have still been civilians who have been killed. So that's still continuing. Now, Anthony Albanese decided to sit down with an interview with Sky News political reporter Kieran Gilbert. Now, Sky News during the day is much more measured than Sky after dark. And so Kieran Gilbert said, he asked Albo if we are forgotten ally, and are we just an afterthought because we weren't warned in advance by the Trump administration that these Iranian airstrikes were happening, these US airstrikes in Iran. We're on the other side of the world. And thankfully, the acting Liberal Shadow Defense Minister, Andrew Hastie, was much less reactionary. Obviously, a former SAS soldier said it's perfectly understandable that the US didn't notify us. They notified the UK because probably they needed a base in it needed access to the British base in island of Cyprus in the Mediterranean, which of course is near Iran. So and of course, New Zealand hasn't even said they have a position on the airstrike. So they're saying, oh, this is Sky News After Dark. The Australian government had to be dragged kicking and screaming to support the airstrikes. Of course, Penny Wong on Insiders last week said Iran can't have a nuclear bomb. I'm not going to get into the discussions about who should have the rights to have nukes or not, but I would not have a problem with Australia developing nuclear bombs, nuclear warheads. I mean, we've got the uranium here. The stupid questions the Canberra Press Gallery asked Albanese and Wong at their press conference announcing their support for the airstrikes was Pine Gap used. Of course, they're not going to admit that. Pine Gap, the US defense military base near Alice Springs, it's very secretive. Nobody really knows what goes on there. Now, of course, there was a meltdown on Sky After Dark last week when Trump left the G7 early without having his meeting with Anthony Albanese because of what was happening in Iran, between Iran and Israel. He also stood up Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine. And there were initial reports that he also didn't meet with Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, but it was later confirmed that he actually did have a chat with her. Although Volodymyr Zelensky, he did get to meet King Charles, and he actually wore a suit to meet King Charles. So he wear a suit for the King of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, King of Australia as well, but won't wear a suit when he's in the Oval Office asking for more money from the President of the United States. and of course, J.D. Vance, the vice president, as well. And of course, J.D. Vance, he was sort of the good cop to when Trump was talking about regime change, saying we're not interested in a regime change. I also saw Tom Switzer, the director of the Center for Independent Studies, used to be at the US Studies Center, was a breath of fresh air on Kremlin, basically saying that Iran is weak. It's not really a threat, and this is the truth. I've said for so long that Iran doesn't have a death wish, and so I saw Konstantin Kishin interview some expert who said that the Iranians are Islamic fanatics obsessed with martyrdom. Then how come they're still wanting to self-preserve their regime? Now, Pauline Hanson released a statement on behalf of One Nation that they supported the US strikes in Iran, but it was very interesting that the ex-LNP MPs, so Senator Jared Rennick and former LNP member for Dawson George Christensen, have turned against Israel. Christensen, he had a 20 long X thread talking about Israel being a rogue state, which upset a lot of his boomer followers of his Nation First Substack. Now, let's go to death and destruction closer to home. And we had last week the death of a former age photojournalist, Dominic O'Brien, age 62, and 42-year-old criminal immigrant Lamaji Friday Yokuju has been charged with his murder. So Yokuju allegedly stomped on O'Brien's face on Sunday, the 15th of June. So not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. So O'Brien died of his injuries on Saturday. So Yukol is originally from Zimbabwe. He was jailed for a year over domestic violence offense, which he says he did not commit, but he pled guilty to it. Then he had his permanent residency revoked and was in immigration detention for 6 years until the 2023 High Court NYZQ decision saw him released, along with many other criminal immigrants. During his court appearance, he laughed as he entered the dock and said, "This is a joke to me," and yelled out a number of times before his lawyer requested an urgent psychiatric assessment. So he did not apply for bail, thankfully, and will return to court on October 20. And then we had last Wednesday. It's a lot of people are now saying that Northland Shopping Centre is cursed because last Wednesday there was a stolen Toyota Land Cruiser. He rammed a police car and destroyed a safety bollard, so it was able to drive through the shopping centre. Now, of course, the car had a driver. The news headlines say car drove through Northland Shopping Centre. Thankfully, no one was injured. Yes, of course, the cars just drive themselves. So the car's driver, Nave, was Girwa May, who fronted the Melbourne Magistrates Court the next day, was charged with reckless conduct, endangering life, theft of a motor vehicle, driving while disqualified, criminal damage, handling stolen goods, and 2 counts of aggravated intentional exposure of a police officer to risk by driving. Thankfully, no one was injured. I wondered at first whether somebody had stolen the Northland Shopping Centre raffle car. You know how they have those raffle cars in shopping centres to raise money for whatever. You can win a car. I remember the Chaser as a sketch years back decided to actually park their car inside a shopping centre, and and people thought it was a charity car, which you sort of think back now as like that was a crazy stunt to drive into a shopping center. Obviously, they weren't going to harm anyone. And now I saw many of you would have saw some of the memes that Jacinta Allen announces immediate ban on the sale of Toyota Land Cruisers because, of course, it is cars are being used as weapons. The logic, of course, she banned the sale of machetes after the Northland machete fight over a month ago. So, which of course, it's the people wielding the machetes who are the problem. It is the same with those who are driving cars into shopping centres, who are putting people at risk. It's the people driving the car. And it's obviously the fact that we have a criminal justice system here in Victoria that lets too many violent criminals, particularly youth offenders, off with a slap on the wrist. Now, of course, it's not just Melbourne where there's all this horrific violent crime going on. Up in Sydney last week, 4 teenagers were charged over an alleged 6-hour gang rape of a girl in Sydney's southwest late last year. So, at a shopping centre in Liverpool on December 15th, a 17-year-old girl was allegedly approached by a 16-year-old boy who was not known to her. After she reluctantly let him inside her car, he allegedly video called the co-accused males while sexually assaulting her. Then 2 other males allegedly got in the vehicle and started sexually assaulting the girl. And then a 4th male drove to the scene, another car, and allegedly entered the victim's car with the other 3. Absolutely horrific. Now, we had the rape gangs in Sydney around 20 years ago, but thankfully, unlike in the United Kingdom, they were successfully prosecuted. There was mass public outrage in Sydney at the time, prosecuted by an absolute legend of the Sydney legal fraternity, Margaret Caneen, SC. She was the Crown prosecutor at the time. She is now a defense lawyer now, defending men against being Me Too. So she knows obviously the difference. Where has one of the most best senses of justice, I think, in Australia. And I met her once at an event, and despite the toughness of her job, she's one of the nicest people that you will ever meet. Dawn Browning says, are we guessing the perpetrators? Yes, we are. I think your guess would be quite correct. And now let's go to state politics. So the administrative committee of the Victorian Liberal Party last week decided that they would loan John Pesciuto 1.5 million of party members' funds, so he would have enough to pay the legal fees he owes Maura Deeming after being found guilty of defaming her last year. And obviously, he had to pay the $300,000 in damages. So he raised $800,000 through various donors. It was the final week of him having to come up with the money or having to declare bankruptcy. and lose his seat in Parliament. So Moira Deeming, in response to despite she being the one who was, well, she was not just defamed, but also she was kicked out of the party room for 18 months. So she had put on her the social media this quite apt meme. And she's taken a bit of a break now from social media to spend time with her family. This was it here. They failed to protect her when she was attacked. They punished her for defending herself. They financially profited off her trauma. They told the world they did her a favor. This is what institutional abuse looks like. And it motivated Margot Huss to write on the Unshackled a scathing, blistering critique of the modern Liberal Party. Obviously, former Victorian Premier Jeff Kennett, who helped bankroll Prosciutto's defamation defence, decided to lobby hard for the Liberal Party's administrative committee to give Prosciutto the loan. Now, the party says that it will charge him a commercial rate of interest. But given that he lost the case, so why should, given that he victimized another party member, why should the party be doing him any favors? And there is a petition going around as we go to air tonight, which is wanting to convene a special meeting of the Victorian Liberal Party State Council, which is a larger body than the administrative committee, to overturn the loan, claiming it's against party rules and also threatening Supreme Court of Victoria action. And now the current Liberal leader, Brad Batten, it was a secret ballot by the administrative committee. He said that he voted for the loan. And obviously he was backed by many of the party's conservative faction, gave Moira Deeming the shadow parliamentary secretary for the western suburbs of Melbourne. And now interpreting Moira Deeming's, what she's posted on her social media, that it appears that she feels betrayed by Brad Batten. I don't want to verbal her or assume what she's thinking, but remember, there is about 15 months to the next Victorian state election last Saturday in November 2026. The Victorian Liberal Party, they are an absolute rabble. They are continually fighting amongst themselves. They've hardly got any talent. It doesn't really matter who they put up as leader. I mean, they're all hopeless. Now, of course, the New South Wales Liberal Party is not much better. Remember, they are in administration at the moment because they failed to lodge 140 nomination forms for local government elections last year, though the federal executive, and this was lobbied for by the new Liberal leader, Susan Ley, who we haven't heard from this week. Where is Sushan? And also the New South Wales Liberal leader, Mark Speakman. They voted to boot off the two conservative Victorian administrators off the administration committee, Richard Alston and Alan Stockdale, who of course made that ill-timed joke about that there's so many assertive women in the New South Wales Liberal Party, there may need to be male quotas in the New South Wales Liberal Party. He said that to the New South Wales Liberals Women Council. So now the administration is now only got New South Wales, the political figures and elders in it. But I would like to give Mark Speakman some credit because he is, unlike the federal Liberal Party, he is taking it to the Minns government over the Dural caravan hoax. Backing the Legislative Council, the upper house investigation. Did the Minns government know that the Dural caravan hoax, remember that had a list of Jewish targets with mining explosives, as well as a note that said, "Fuck the Jews." It was later revealed by New South Wales Police and Australian Federal Police that all of the alleged anti-Semitic graffiti and arson was all part of this elaborate organized crime conspiracy to basically trade information for more favorable bail conditions. The mastermind was an Australian gym owner charged with drug trafficking who's currently hiding overseas, primarily in Turkey. So the New South Wales Legislative Council, they don't have the power to compel the Premier, Chris Minns, to appear since he's a member of the lower house. But the chair of this inquiry, Rod Roberts, who is former New South Wales One Nation MLC, has called members of Chris Minns' staff to give evidence. And when after a 30-minute grace period, he said that he would ask the president of the New South Wales Legislative Council to issue arrest warrants for these staffers of Chris Minns who refused to appear. It's not playing that clip of Rod Roberts, so I'll just play what the president of the New South Wales Legislative Council said today. Ben Franklin, who is a Labor Party member, is going to seek legal advice about whether he should sign off on the arrest warrants.
Honourable members, on Friday the 20th of June, I received correspondence from the Honourable Rod Roberts in his capacity as Chair of the Select Committee on the relationship between the Dural Caravan incident and the passage of relevant bills through the Legislative Council. The correspondence indicated that 5 witnesses summoned under Section 4 of the Parliamentary Evidence Act to appear at a hearing on that day had failed to appear, and therefore calling upon me to certify to a judge of the Supreme Court that they had failed to appear without a just and reasonable excuse, a just cause and reasonable excuse under Section 7 of the Act. The consequence of my certification is that the judge is then required to issue a warrant for the apprehension of the 5 witnesses for the purposes of bringing them before the committee to give evidence under the process set out in Sections 7 to 9 of the Parliamentary Evidence Act 1901. On Friday afternoon, on receipt of the letter, I instructed the clerk to seek legal advice on this matter. This morning, I have met with Mr. Brett Walker SC, who has given me the benefit of his learned verbal advice on the matter. On the receipt of his advice in written form, I intend to table it in the House, given the significance of this issue. In the meantime, I am considering his advice and its implications. I intend to make a statement to the House later this week on my intended action.
Now, given that he's a Labor member, it's unlikely that he will sign off on the arrest warrants. But then there'd be another process. If he did agree, he'd need to convince a Supreme Court justice. So assuming it gets to that point, the staffers will be arrested and forced to attend the inquiry. They are not afforded the right to remain silent. So Minns accused this inquiry of being a politically motivated attempt to stop young people running for Parliament. The Premier also implied Legislative Council members Rod Roberts, John Roddick, were tinfoil nut jobs playing games with people's lives. So Chris Minns, he denied that he's escaping scrutiny. He said, I'm one of the most available premiers in the country. And that's what he said to Ben Fordham on 2GB. Then why not just appear before this inquiry? Now, moving on to the UK, where it seems that, the Victoria's abortion up until birth and euthanasia laws, first they spread all around Australia. Now they have spread to the United Kingdom. So first, last week, they passed the House of Commons, the legalisation of abortion up until birth. Then passed later that week was the Assisted Dying Terminally Ill Adults End of Life Bill. So it's said only for people who have a terminal illness defined as an incurable disease or condition expected to cause death within 6 months. Now, of course, this could be the beginning of the slippery slope, which the slope has gone to absolutely abhorrent levels in Canada with the MAID. Well, it's not called euthanasia. They don't like to call it euthanasia anymore. They call it like the assisted suicide. But in Canada, the MAID assisted dying laws allow the mentally ill to end their lives as long as they provide informed consent. Now, this was shared by one of the critics of the assisted dying euthanasia law. It won't be our choice for long. So one cycle of chemotherapy cost the NHS £3,885. Assisted suicide, only £183. And we know that the NHS, it is one of the biggest drains on the British taxpayer. And so you can see that it would as a way that, and this is the problem with socialized medicine, death panels, where they can already decide, death panels, whether somebody is worthy of treatment or not. Now it has begun the process of funneling elderly and sick people to ending their lives early, which of course the UK has inheritance tax. So not only does the NHS save money with some sick old person dying, but they also are able to scoop up some inheritance tax as well. And now I saw that a few people posted on X that maybe Dr. Harold Shipman should be made Sir Dr. Harold Shipman. He should not only get a posthumous pardon for killing 215 of his patients with morphine, but he should also get a knighthood for being ahead of the curve in this assisted suicide. Now, one of the biggest lobbyists for this assisted dying bill is somebody by the name of a Dame. Hang on. Dame Esther Patson, who was one of Sir Jimmy Savile's best friends. And ironically, she founded a Childline to help vulnerable children. Yet She was friends with one of the UK's biggest known pedophiles. And of course, Jimmy Savile escaped justice in his lifetime. And most recently, the latest BBC pedophile nonce, Hugh Edwards, didn't go to jail for having photos of children getting raped on his phone, but somebody who did go to jail for almost 3 years for saying mean words on the internet, particularly about the BBC's Jeremy Vine. He was accused of stalking Jeremy Vine, the BBC radio presenter and the most annoying and disruptive cyclist in the whole of the United Kingdom and the world. He never went to Jeremy Vine's house, simply made videos critiquing him and also sending email inquiries to the BBC. He got convicted of stalking for it was sentenced to 5 years in prison. He served 3 of it, and now thankfully he is released from prison now, and he is back with a vengeance. So his Voice of Reason, a club, is back on alexbelfield.com. He released a 20-minute welcome back video where he went through some of the supportive mail that he got while he was in prison. They tried to break him, probably hoped that he would kill himself, but he is back and as funny, as witty as ever. I mean, his daily Voice of Reason vlogs, he's just able to speak off the cuff and just be so entertaining. And Katie Hopkins was one of those who supported him and visited him in prison. They used to tour together a couple of gobshites live. So while he's already planning a comeback tour, and has so the tour it's called The Second Coming, and he's also, while he was in prison, wrote a number of books. So the first one has been released, His Own Worst Enemy, the autobiography, then Locked Down, Locked Up, and then Surviving the Slammer. So he's got 6 books in total. So one of the most productive prisoners, I would say, in history. So I am so glad that he is back, and he is undeterred, hasn't been silent. So his warm-up shows in August are called Alex Belfield's Soft Opening, and then he's also got a black tie event, a Belfield's Fisted Chicken Banquet Ball. So I do hope that I should send in a request to interview him. I'm not sure how much he can talk about those BBC people, but it would be an honor to interview such a warrior, as it was an honor to interview Katie Hopkins, who, of course, is still on the road with her batshit bonkers Britain tour, named after her daily vlogs. So I thought I'd finish with some good news. All right, that is the end of Tim's News Explosion for another week. Thank you for watching once again. Now, remember, I cannot do any of this without your support. So please consider supporting my work and the work of the Unshackled financially through either taking out a subscription on Substack, theunshackled.substack.com/subscribe, So you can support monthly for $5 per month, annual $50 per year, or founding member $500 per year, or you can subscribe for free to get the email alerts, because I use the Unshackled Substack to send out email alerts for upcoming Unshackled productions and new Unshackled articles. And you can also take out a premium membership over on the unshackled.net. So bronze, $5 per month, $50 per year, silver, $10 per month, $100 per year, gold, $25 per month, $250 per year, or platinum, $50 per month, $500 per year. So the unshackled.net is still where we publish our written articles. Now, I will let you know when the next Wilms front is. There'll be another report from Tiger Mountain with Richard Wollstonecroft published later in the week, and I'll let you know when I'm back on Reality Check Radio New Zealand. As remember, the least you can do is like, comment, share, subscribe, click the bell to allow notifications. It all helps with the algorithm. In the meantime, and until next Tim News Explosion, back at the normal time, Monday, 8:30 p.m. on the Wilms Front channels. Stay safe, stay sane, stay free, and let's hope for peace. Good night, everybody.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.